This video is the mid-year book freakout tag, and this is also a reading goals check-in for me. So at the beginning of the year, I set a bunch of reading goals I had for the whole reading year, and since it's June, I wanted to check in with those goals and see if I needed to course correct, because they are a very similar vein about reflecting on the past 5.5, 6 months of reading and looking forward to the latter half of the year's reading. So I'm going to be answering a bunch of questions about my reading year thus far and what I hope to accomplish in the second half of the year. Of course, I will have the original creator of this tag listed down below, and all of the questions and all of my answers and all sorts of things in the description box down below. So let's just get started. And the first question, let me get my notes, is the best book I've read so far. Asking a reader what their favorite book is cruel and unusual punishment, in my opinion, because having to pick just one book is almost impossible. But I finally ended up with the answer, The House in the Cerulean Sea, just because of how much I still think about this book almost on a daily or weekly basis. I think about these characters all the time, and this story was so impactful to me that I think this is my favorite. I've read so many wonderful, wonderful books this year, but I think this is the one that I'm gonna pick for this prompt, the best book I read so far this year. I've read this book 4 times this year. So I guess on simple math alone, that is my answer. Question number 2 is the best sequel you read this year, and that has to be The Relentless Moon by Mary Robinette Kowal. Haha, you thought I was done talking about this series, but no. I thought that this third book in the Lady Astronaut series was the best book in the series. This is about an alternate historical retelling of the 1950s and 60s, and an asteroid has hit the Earth, and basically the Earth is dying, and so NASA is trying to get to, colonize the moon and Mars much sooner than actual history has told it. And this third book is so political, and there's so much like espionage and all of the sci-fi elements combined with the political intrigue in this book with the characters. It just has, to me, like the perfect balance of all of the things that I love when I pick up a story. So this is by far the best sequel I've read this year. Question 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. Oh my gosh, there's so many new releases that I obviously want to get to. The one I'm gonna pick for this answer is called Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. I actually have the audiobook from the library, and I'm reading too many other things right now to get to it, and I've got like a week and a half left. So I'm like, I need to finish a couple of other things first before I can dive into this story. So this is a debut novel, and it's a sci-fi gay political story where the two main characters are men, and they're thrust into a political marriage together, and one of the men's previous partners was murdered. So the story is about these two men learning to like love each other and come together in their arranged marriage, and also figure out what happened to the previous husband of one of the men. And I'm sure there's lots of sci-fi elements and gay shit, and I'm just like, I need to read this. And it's a standalone, so I'm like desperate to get to this. But again, I need to finish a bunch of other things first so I can just like binge read this in like one sitting, and I'm super duper excited for it. I need to get to it. Number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Oh gosh, there are so many awesome new releases coming out, but I have to pick Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune, who wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea. The synopsis of this is basically the main character dies in the beginning of the book, and the afterlife is them going to a tea house and learning about themselves and like trying to come to terms with their own death. And I'm like, it sounds super emotionally impactful with like a little bit of fantasy thrown in, which is exactly what this House in the Cerulean Sea was. It was like super character driven and emotionally impactful with a little bit of fantasy. And I think Under the Whispering Door is going to be House in the Cerulean Sea 2.0. I mean, in a different way. Obviously, it's a completely different story and it has to deal with like death and trauma, I'm sure. But I have a sneaking suspicion that this is gonna be like just as good as The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm just like, oh, I just want it. Biggest disappointment, number 5. Winterkeep by Kristen Kishore. I have a rant video, so I don't even want to talk about it. I'm so upset with this. You can watch my rant. Biggest surprise. Okay, more positivity. This, I couldn't pick just one. There were so many books that surprised me, and I'll just go through them really quickly. First one is The Roommate by Rosie Danan. This was a romance that really caught me off guard with its casual queerness, casual diversity, and sex positivity, and I just really loved this romance. I need to get my own copy, but this was a really big surprise for me. Second book, Once and Future. I picked this up and I had really low expectations. I was like, this is just gonna be a fun time, and it totally was, but I thought Once and Future and its sequel, Sword in the Stars, were excellent young adult stories, and I really liked them. And my last book for this prompt is The Switch by Beth O'Leary. This was marketed to me as a romance, and it wasn't. It was more of a contemporary, and almost all of the books that end up being that way for me, I don't like, because I don't like contemporaries, but this one meant a lot to me because the grandma character reminded me of my grandparents and made me miss them, but also think of them fondly. So I have a lot of like emotional connection to these characters, and I don't want to get all weepy, but like that is why I loved this so much, because it just reminded me of my grandmas, and that's why I loved it. Yes, it wasn't really a romance, but I don't care. All right, number 7 is favorite new author. It could be a debut author or a author that is new to you. I'm going to say Mary Robinette Kowal and Talia Hibbert. I try to give authors like 2 or 3 books before I decide if they're a favorite, because it's like if you read one and it's great and one and it's trash, it's like, okay, how does this balance out, you know? And so I read 3 books by both of these authors and loved every single one of them. So I think I can safely say that these 2 authors are favorites of mine now. This is a fun one. It's newest fictional crush or crushes. So, I mean, if you haven't seen, you probably have, but I'm a newly discovered bisexual, pansexual person. And what that has meant is I have now recognized that some of the people or some of the characters I've been reading are not just like, oh, they're so cool. It's like, actually, I kind of am crushing on them. Both men, women, non-binary people, etc. So I have the pleasant surprise of choosing characters who are of all the genders, so I am super excited to talk about them. So first of all, we've got Red, White, and Royal Blue. I think June, Nora, and Pez. June, Nora are women, and Pez is like a man but is kind of non-binary vibes, and the 3 of them, both independently and together. They're kind of maybe a throuple, sort of. I think they're all hot. They're all really intelligent and really attractive to me in my brain. And I also want to call out Jane Sue, who is the love interest in One Last Stop. I'm actually reading this right now and I'm almost done with it, but Jane Sue is a Chinese American butch lesbian from the 70s. Oh my god, Jane Sue is so hot in my head, and the things she does to August, like, whoo, makes me blush. Whoo. So basically, Casey McQuiston, you write my type, I guess. And the last, I guess, group of fictional crushes I have is like all of the Brown sisters. I think are incredibly attractive. And also Jacob. I think Jacob is super hot. And I'm getting embarrassed, so let's keep moving. All right, number 9, newest favorite character. Okay, again, I can't just pick one. So let's just go through it. So we've got Nicole Wargan from The Relentless Moon, who is like a politician's wife, but she is more than that in this book. She's also an astronaut in her own right, and you learn a lot about her, and she is conniving, and I love her so much. The second favorite character is Linus Baker. I love Linus so much. He's a sweet, sweet cinnamon roll who just deserves all the love in the world, and I love him to death. He's just such a soft character, and I love him. He makes me weep. All right, my books are everywhere. Dana from Kindred. Ryan, my husband's probably like, what? But I think Dana is such an interesting character that I think she also deserves to be on this list. Who else? Oh, Evelyn from The Echo Wife. In a similar vein as Dana, is a little effed up in the head, but I think Evelyn has such an interesting character arc in this book. Obviously, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah. Wait, there's more. Viridiana from Untamed Shore. I don't have a copy of it, but Untamed Shore is one of my new favorite books that I read this year, and Viridiana is such an interesting character, and like what she does in that book and her whole arc is just, all right, I gotta be quick. Nemesis from The Diabolic, love her to death. Rin from The Poppy War kind of scares me, but could also stomp on me and maybe I'd be okay with it. That was a lot. That was a lot of characters, but like I can't pick just one because these characters I love in like slightly different ways, and they're just in such different stories that I couldn't pick just one. Okay, number 10 is books that made you cry. I mean, are we surprised? House in the Cerulean Sea and Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Both of these made me cry. House in the Cerulean Sea made me cry tears of joy and happiness, ugly sob. And Eve Brown didn't make me ugly sob, but I definitely had a couple of happy tears falling down my face. So both of these were happy crying, and I'll just leave it at that. A book that made you happy. All of the romance books that I read this year have brought me so much just unbridled, unhindered serotonin that I just want to say thank you to the romance genre as a whole. I love romance books now, and I can't imagine myself not reading romance because it is just such a pure hit of joy and happiness for me that I need that sprinkled in with all of my dark fantasy that I love. Okay, number 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. I have to go with 400 Souls. I think this cover and the colors are just absolutely stunning. And like the spine is like beautiful, like a sunset. I bought this myself. I kind of bought it as an impulse. I knew about it. I knew it was coming out, but then I saw it in the store and I thought it was the most beautiful book ever. And I'm so glad I have my own copy of it. I mean, my friend still has it, but you know what I mean? Like this is my answer for sure. All right, number 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I don't like this question. I don't like putting pressure on myself because I'm such a mood reader. I will pick up a book that I've been anticipating for 6 months, read 5 pages and be like, I'm not interested in this, or I'm just not feeling this right now. So it's hard for me to be definitive about like, I need to read this exact book at this exact time, etc., etc. So my answer is I want to read whatever I want and have a good time reading, but there is one book I think that I would really, really like to get to, and that is Raybearer by Jordan Ifweko. I own the audiobook of this book, and I would like to get to this one because I've heard nothing but good things, and its sequel and the end of the duology is also coming out this year. So I would like to read books 1 and 2 kind of back to back if I'm really loving the series. And I just have a sneaking suspicion that this book is going to do it for me and be a new favorite. So but I just haven't been in the mood yet, and because it's young adult fantasy, and I just like have been picking up other young adult fantasy lately, so I would like to make this a priority for the latter half of the year, and then possibly pick up the sequel. All right, the last question in this tag, and then we'll do a rapid fire round of checking in with my goals. The last question is, list your favorite book community members. First of all of you watching, you're a part of the book community by participating with this video, and I just want to say thank you for watching and participating and leaving comments and likes and whatnot for these videos that I put out into the world. So thank you. You are all my favorite. I've talked about my favorite creators before, so I'm gonna try to talk about people that I've recently discovered. And first of all, everyone who's tagged me in a video, Book Binge and Lolly Curates, you guys are awesome. I can't believe you took time to mention me. Love you guys. But the two new to me creators that I have really enjoyed watching their content are Jen Campbell, who is a disabled British lady who's a reader and a writer, and I've just really enjoyed her reading vlogs lately and her discussions about visible disabilities, and I just think her content is really aesthetically pleasing. The other new to me creator is Chandler Ainsley, who has like a lot of subscribers. Like, she's been around for a long time, but I've never seen one of her videos before until recently, and now I'm like obsessed. She mostly reads romance, which is how I found her. I was reading a lot of romance, so I wanted to find romance readers, and she popped up, and I was like, yes, love you. Thank you so much for all of the romance recommendations. So those are the creators that I wanted to call out in this section. Okay, this last bit is a quick check-in on what I said in the beginning of the year that were my reading goals. So if you want to watch that video where I talk about my 2021 reading goals, you can, but I'm just gonna kind of quickly go through and talk about each one quickly at the end of this video. So one of my goals is to read 25 adult hard sci-fi books, and I have read 17 out of 25, so doing good there. Second goal is to read 20 nonfiction books, and I have read 13 nonfiction thus far. So 13 out of 20, doing pretty well. That leaves 7 for the rest of the year, which is about 1 a month plus 1. Goal number 3 is to read 5 disability-owned voices books with disabled main characters. I have read 6 out of 5, so I am smashing this goal, and I hope to read much, much more disability-owned voices books. Number 4 is to read 5 trans, non-binary, or gender non-conforming owned voices books, and I have read 4 out of 5, and I'm reading another one, so 4.5 out of 5. So I'm doing pretty good on this goal, and again, I would love to read more trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming authors and characters. Now we get to the shame. Number 5 is finish all of my outstanding owned series. And I've completed 1. So I owned all of the Diabolic trilogy, and I've completed this trilogy. If you want to see that video, I'll link it above. Then I have the Fallen Kingdoms, have not thought about this series, and the Diviners. I have not finished or picked up any of these books. So it's time to think about if I'm going to pick them up or permanently DNF the series. And the last series that I own in its entirety that I would like to finish is Rebel of the Sands, which if you saw my May wrap-up, I did read book 1 of the series again, but I'm still not sure if I will continue. I have weird feelings about this series, and maybe I'm just gonna move on from this series. So this might be a permanent DNF from me. So, we'll see. My 6th goal is to publish 1 video a month, and I have completely smashed this goal. I have published almost 1 video a week, and I'm really proud of that. And I think I need to find a good balance of video editing with my work, since summer is a busy time for me at work, which means a lot of strain on my muscles that I use for video editing. So that might slow down, but I've been doing really well so far with that goal. Goal number 7 is to read 50 BIPOC authors, 50 books by BIPOC authors. And this does not include rereads. So for example, I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown 3 times this year, but that only counts as 1 tally. Does that make sense? So yes, I've read 80 some odd books, including rereads, but I'm only counting it as 1 for this category. Let me know if that makes sense to you. It kind of makes sense in my head, but let me know. And I've read 37 out of 50 BIPOC authors, which I think is fantastic. Number 8 is read 50 queer authors, read 50 queer authors, queer books, and I've read 15 out of 50. And again, that doesn't include rereads. So I read House in the Cerulean Sea 4 times, but I only counted it once towards this goal. So, take these numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt. Maybe I'll shift my tally if you guys think I can count them more than once. I'm not sure. I don't know how I feel about that, but I could be reading more queer authors according to my data here. 15 out of 50 is a little bit lower than I would like. So it's Pride Month, so this is a great opportunity to read as many queer books as possible, and I deserve it. All right, number 9 is just to read 100 books, and I have read 83. Soon to be 84, because I'm about to finish One Last Stop. And so that is way, way more than I ever thought I could read in a year. And I'm really proud of that number. Number 10 is to use my library more. And I've broken it down. So 53% of the books I've read this year have been audiobooks from the library, which is incredible to me. 19% of the books I've read have been purchased in 2021, and 28% of the books read have been books I owned prior to 2021, so reading kind of my backlog. So I am super pleased. 53% from the library. I'm very happy with that, and I will continue to use my library. Number 11 was to keep up my reading journal, and to be honest, at the end of April and May, I did not do a very good job of writing in my reading journal. And my reading journal is just for me to take some notes on the books that I'm reading if I have thoughts about what I'm reading, just to like jot them down really quick, so when I'm talking about them in videos I can kind of refer back, and I haven't really been doing a very good job the last couple of weeks. So that is definitely something I would like to get back into as June progresses. So definitely something to work on. Number 12 was to write more book reviews, like actually write book reviews using my speech-to-text software, and I've read 83 books and I've only written 2 book reviews in 6 months. So this is definitely something I could be doing better at. My only excuse is that it takes time and a lot of mental energy, and I just haven't had that recently, but really I could be making an effort. If I write 1 a month, like that seems reasonable. Like, come on, I could do better. Shame. 13, my goal number 13 is to finish my novel draft. Nope, haven't thought about it, I have not felt the need to return to my story. And so maybe that means I'm putting it down forever, but I just haven't thought about it and haven't wanted to. So I don't know. This goal is a little up in the air. Okay, and the last goal I have is actually a new goal that I came up with since starting my channel. So, you know, my original video, I had like 13 goals, and this is one I just kind of came up with, and that is to edit all of my closed captions on all of my videos. So for me, I think accessibility should be a priority. It should be your first thought, not your afterthought. So I made the goal a couple of weeks ago to every video that I publish from that point on would have edited closed captions, and then eventually work my way through my backlog of videos that I had published up to that point to get those closed captions edited. I just think it's really important, and it's something that I want to do. It is really hard on me to do that much typing, but it is something I think that I need to do. So I have, as of filming this video, I have 27 videos on my channel, which is insane. 27 videos? I don't even remember doing that many videos. And of those 27 videos, I have edited closed captions on 10 of them. So that includes like videos when I started that goal forward and a few in the backlog. This is a long video, but I appreciate you sticking with me, and I will hopefully see you for the rest of the reading year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye.